palace gates closed behind her like the jaws of a tomb. She was crowned amidst roaring cheers, a shining star draped in jewels and silk, but within those cold, gilded walls, silence swallowed her whole. The corridors whispered secrets of betrayal, the air heavy with the scent of jasmine and dread. She vanished, not with a scream or a fight, but as if erased by the very crown she wore. Who was she beneath the finery? What shadows haunted her final days? Tonight, we unravel the haunting mystery of the Empress who ruled and then disappeared inside her own palace. If you find tales of power and tragedy irresistible, don't forget to like and subscribe. The story you're about to hear will linger long after the screen fades to black. Chapter 1. The Crown's Weight. A palace of promise and prison. The palace was a beast of stone and gold, ancient yet alive with breath and pulse, a monument to power forged in sweat and blood. Its walls rose high, swallowing sunlight, casting long shadows that spilled like ink across the marble floors. The scent of jasmine and rosewater clung to the air, almost sweet enough to mask the faint, metallic tang of old fear that lingered in hidden chambers. She stepped inside, her silken skirts whispering secrets with every careful step, the weight of the crown a cold fire pressing against her brow. The cheers that welcomed her felt distant, like echoes in a cavern, hollow and fragile. In that moment, she was no longer a woman but a symbol, a vessel for hopes and schemes far older than herself. Her eyes scanned the vast throne room where courtiers in glittering finery bowed with practiced devotion, their faces unreadable masks. The murmurs swirled like smoke, admiration, envy, hatred, each breath a subtle assault, each glance a blade concealed beneath velvet. She tasted the bitter tang of nerves, a cocktail of dread and determination swirling beneath her calm exterior. The gold embroidery of her robe caught the light like molten rivers, but it was a river with unseen currents, dangerous and swift. The palace was alive, and it watched her with 1,000 eyes. That night, beneath a sky veiled in stars, the grand halls were silent except for the soft footsteps of servants and the occasional distant laughter of courtiers drunk on wine and ambition. The Empress retreated to her chambers, a suite of silk-draped rooms scented with sandalwood and ancient dust. She lit a candle, the flame flickering weakly against the shadows that clung to the corners. The warmth was fragile, a pale glow that did little to pierce the cold that settled deep in her bones. Alone, she removed the crown, its gold cold and heavy even in the quiet. She traced the delicate filigree with trembling fingers, feeling the sharp edges beneath the smooth surface. The weight was not just physical, it was a burden that would bend or break her. The palace walls held countless secrets, whispered in the dead of night, whispers of past empresses who had been consumed by their own thrones. Some vanished like smoke, others shattered like glass under the crushing weight of expectation. She had heard their names, seen their portraits stare down from shadowed galleries, eyes full of unspoken pain. Would she join them, become another lost echo in these hallowed halls? Sleep came in fits, uneasy and haunted by half-remembered dreams of betrayal and blood. She awoke with the taste of iron on her tongue, heart pounding beneath the silken sheets. Outside, the world expected her to be unbreakable, a pillar of strength and grace. Inside, she was a fragile flame flickering against a cold, unrelenting storm. She was Empress, but the crown was not a gift, it was a sentence. The days that followed unfolded like a relentless tide, each moment carrying with it a subtle, suffocating pressure. Courtiers circled her like hawks, their smiles sharp and their words coated in poison. Every conversation was a calculated dance, every gesture weighed against unseen rules. The grand halls shimmered with chandeliers dripping crystals like tears frozen in time, but beneath the glitter lay a current of cold calculation. The Empress learned quickly that loyalty was as rare as mercy in this gilded cage. She met her council in a chamber heavy with the scent of cedar and old parchment. The men who surrounded her were masters of manipulation, their eyes gleaming with ambition. Their voices were smooth, but their intent was jagged as the executioner's axe. They spoke of alliances, enemies, and endless threats. Some real, many imagined, but no less terrifying. She realised then that power was not a shield but a blade, cutting both friend and foe alike. At court, the harem, an enclave of whispered rumours and shattered dreams, loomed like a shadowed corner of her world she dared not confront openly. Women bound not by love but by duty. Their beauty a currency that could build or destroy kingdoms. The Empress knew too well the fragility of trust within these walls, where jealousy and fear brewed a toxic poison. The palace was a labyrinth, not just of corridors, but of hearts, each one a potential enemy or ally. One evening the sound of distant drums echoed through the marble, a reminder of the unrest beyond the palace walls. The kingdom was restless. Famine gnawed at villages, and whispers of rebellion drifted like smoke through the air. The Empress stood by her window, the cool night breeze brushing against her skin, carrying the scent of wet earth and burning wood. Outside, the world was crumbling, yet inside she was trapped in a web of silk and steel. Her reflection in the glass stared back at her, a woman crowned yet captive, her eyes shadowed with growing despair. The crown sat heavily on her brow, a constant reminder that every choice came with a cost. She was expected to be both mother and executioner to her people, to wield mercy and cruelty in equal measure. The palace was no sanctuary. It was a battlefield where the fiercest wars were fought in silence. In the solitude of her chamber she clutched a faded letter, words from a distant past, promises of love and freedom now as distant as the stars. The ink had blurred with time, much like her hopes. Tears traced silent paths down her cheeks, each one a testament to the loneliness that the crown could never conceal. Power had come to her like a storm, and now she stood amid the wreckage, searching for a way to survive. But survival demanded sacrifice, and sacrifice demanded silence. The court's whispered intrigues wove tighter around her like a shroud. Every day was a test of endurance, a delicate balance between wielding authority and concealing vulnerability. At banquets bathed in flickering candlelight, laughter rang hollow beneath the clinking of crystal goblets. Courtiers exchanged veiled threats behind perfumed fans, their eyes darting like predatory birds, always watching, always waiting. She tasted the bitterness of isolation, an empress surrounded by a sea of faces yet utterly alone. Her nights became a battleground between hope and despair. Sleep was a fragile visitor, haunted by nightmares of betrayal and blood spilled on cold marble floors. The walls of the palace seemed to close in, their once majestic beauty now oppressive, suffocating. The scent of sandalwood and jasmine mingled with something darker, fear, the stench of impending ruin. Each shadow in the flickering candlelight seemed to stretch and reach, as if the very air conspired against her. Her attendants moved with quiet efficiency, but even they were caught in the palace's ruthless dance. Among them were whispers of a hidden faction, loyal not to the crown but to old alliances, their allegiance shifting like desert sands. The Empress felt the sting of their silence, the weight of secrets they carried behind bowed heads. Trust was a currency she could neither earn nor spend freely. Every smile concealed a knife. One afternoon, as the sun filtered weakly through stained glass, a messenger arrived bearing news that shattered the fragile calm. The northern provinces were aflame with rebellion. Peasant uprisings spread like wildfire, fueled by hunger and despair. The Empress listened in stunned silence, the cold grip of dread tightening around her heart. Her realm was fracturing, and the palace, her prison, was a fragile bubble soon to burst. She retreated to the gardens, where the scent of blooming roses was almost cruel in its sweetness. The petals, so vibrant and alive, seemed to mock her fading strength. As she walked beneath the gnarled branches of ancient trees, the weight of her crown pressed heavier still. Power was no longer a beacon, it was a chain dragging her deeper into darkness. In those moments, the Empress understood the brutal truth. The throne was not a sanctuary. It was a battlefield where innocence was sacrificed, where dreams were crushed beneath the heel of necessity. She had been crowned to rule, but she feared she might soon be crowned to fall. And in the silent chambers of her heart, the first shadows of disappearance took root. The palace grew colder in those days, not from the shifting seasons, but from the creeping chill of suspicion. The once vibrant halls, alive with music and whispered schemes, now echoed with silence heavier than stone. She wandered them like a ghost trapped between the past and an uncertain future, her footsteps soft but burdened with the weight of inevitable fate. The crown, once a symbol of triumph, had become a yoke, each jewel a reminder of promises broken, alliances betrayed, and the fragile thread that tethered her to life itself. Her closest confidants became shadows, their loyalty flickering in the dark like dying embers. They spoke in riddles, their eyes darting toward hidden exits, their words coated with the bitterness of survival. Every meeting was a minefield. One wrong word, one misplaced glance could ignite a storm that would consume her. The palace was a stage, and she was both queen and prisoner, actor and victim entwined in a tragic play, written by power and fear. Night after night, she sat by her window, watching the city flicker with lantern light beneath a velvet sky. The distant sounds of unrest, cries, the clatter of horses, the sharp report of muskets, pierced the fragile silence. Outside the palace walls, her kingdom was unravelling, tearing itself apart like ancient parchment worn thin by time and turmoil. She felt powerless, a figurehead surrounded by chaos, her every command undermined by forces beyond her control. In these moments, her thoughts drifted to the women who had come before her, the empresses and queens lost to history, their names spoken only in whispers. Some had perished by the executioner's axe, others vanished into forgotten chambers, swallowed by madness or despair. She wondered if her fate would mirror theirs. Was she destined to become another ghost, a silent shadow haunting the palace corridors? The crown weighed heavily on her soul, a burden no silk robe could soften. She was a prisoner not just of stone and gold, but of expectation and legacy. Each day she donned her regalia, stepping into the role carved out by history, yet inside she felt the slow erosion of self, the fading light of a woman swallowed by the demands of power. And then, one night, the palace fell silent. No footsteps echoed in the halls, no whispered rumours slipped through the cracks. The Empress had vanished. Chapter 2. Echoes in the Marble. The Ghosts of Power and the Price of Silence. The palace, once vibrant with life and tension, fell into a void of chilling stillness. Courtiers whispered in hushed voices, their faces masks of dread and suspicion. No official word was ever spoken. The Empress's chambers were sealed, untouched like a shrine to absence. The very air grew heavy, saturated with a silence that screamed louder than any accusation. Her disappearance was a wound in the heart of the kingdom, bleeding uncertainty and fear into every corner of the realm. Outside the gilded prison, the people murmured legends. Some spoke of secret executions by the executioner's axe, hidden behind closed doors. Others whispered of madness consuming the Empress, her mind shattered by the cruel demands of the crown. Soldiers patrolled restless streets where famine and rebellion simmered, and the absence of their sovereign sent a ripple of despair through towns and villages alike. The throne was empty, but the weight of her vanishing pressed down on every soul. Historians would later debate the truth. Was she betrayed by those closest to her, a victim of palace intrigue and lethal ambition? Or did she choose silence as a final, desperate escape, slipping away like a ghost to preserve a fragment of the self that power had nearly destroyed? The palace, with its marble columns and crystal chandeliers, became a tomb of secrets, and the line between fact and legend blurred beneath layers of fear and myth. In the weeks that followed, the realm fractured further. Nobles jockeyed for position, armies clashed in shadows, and the common folk bore the harshest burden. The scent of smoke and death mingled with the fertile earth, a cruel reminder that no crown could protect from the tide of suffering. The Empress's disappearance was not just a personal tragedy, it was a catalyst for a kingdom's unravelling, a mirror reflecting the price of silence and the fragility of power. The empty throne room became a haunting symbol, a stark reminder that power is fleeting and mortality inevitable. Those who had watched her rise now questioned what had been lost beyond the crown. A woman, a ruler, a soul swallowed whole by the machinery of sovereignty. Her vanishing left a void not just in the palace, but in the very fabric of history. The palace, though still standing in all its cold splendour, became a mausoleum of memories and unanswered questions. Its once bright corridors now whispered of absence, footsteps that never returned, laughter that no longer filled the grand halls. Servants moved silently, their faces drawn and hollow, carrying burdens heavier than their simple duties. The Empress's chambers remained locked, a shrine to loss and mystery, untouched except for the faint scent of sandalwood that lingered like a ghost's breath. Outside the palace walls the kingdom simmered with unrest. Fields once fertile lay fallow, villages crippled by famine and the grinding wheels of war. The peasants' cries rose like a mournful dirge, echoing the silence of their vanished sovereign. Without the steady hand of the Empress, the fragile threads holding the realm together frayed rapidly. Loyalties shifted like desert sands, alliances broke under pressure, and old grudges ignited into open conflict. In the courts and taverns, rumours spread like wildfire. Some claimed she had been taken by shadowy enemies, poisoned by a jealous rival, strangled in secret by an executioner's axe hidden beneath the palace floor. Others believed she had succumbed to madness, trapped within the gilded cage until her mind unravelled, leaving her a prisoner of her own torment. Still, a few whispered that she had escaped, choosing exile over death, vanishing into the night to reclaim a shred of freedom from a life that demanded too high a price. The legend of the vanished Empress grew, woven into the fabric of the kingdom's collective memory. Poets sang of her beauty and sorrow, painters captured her likeness with eyes full of longing and loss. She became a symbol of the tragic cost of power, the woman who was both sovereign and sacrifice. Her story was told and retold, each telling adding layers of myth to the stark reality. And yet, beneath the myth, the truth remained elusive, buried in the shadows of marble and blood. The palace stood as a silent witness to a tale of ambition, suffering, and ultimate disappearance, a reminder that even those crowned with glory can be swallowed by the very world they sought to command. Years passed, and still her name was spoken, not in ceremony or state decree, but in whispers that hung in the air like dust disturbed in an old tomb. Children born after her disappearance knew her only through stories spoken in candlelight by mothers who had once glimpsed her from the crowd, or by old guards who remembered the way she carried herself, tall and solemn, like someone already mourning her own fate. In marketplaces, in barracks, even in cloistered convents, her image lingered, the vanished Empress, crowned in silence, buried in rumour. The monarchy limped on without her. Pretenders rose, fell, and rose again, none with the same solemn command or tragic mystique. Each successor stood in her shadow, unable to silence the memory of the woman who had ruled with eyes too old for her youth. Her absence was a wound that never closed, a reminder that the throne could devour its own, and that the true cost of power was not blood spilled in open rebellion, but the slow, quiet erosion of the soul. And still, no body was ever found. Some said she had been sealed alive behind the walls, entombed by those who feared what her presence, her mere existence, might threaten. Others believed she had taken her own life in the sacred garden, beneath the weeping fig tree that now bloomed out of season, as though fed by something beneath the earth. There were even those who claimed they had seen her in faraway lands, her face veiled, her name forgotten, wandering like a ghost who had slipped free of her own history. The truth may have been simpler or crueler. Perhaps she had merely stopped being seen, made invisible by the politics that crowned her. erased by the very court that once bowed at her feet. It happens, sometimes. In the great machinery of empire, people vanish. Their names are scratched from ledgers, their portraits removed, their chambers sealed, their stories lost in favour of the next rising star. It is not always murder. Sometimes it is quieter than that. Sometimes power just forgets you. In the cold corridors of the palace, echoes remain. A perfume on the breeze where there should be none. The sound of silk brushing against stone. A whisper at the edge of hearing, soft as breath. Speaking no words, only memory. And when night falls, and the moon casts silver over the marble floors, it is said she still walks there. Not in fury, not in sorrow, but as a question that will never be answered.